decision to go this route. However, I do want to say that this looks like the best possibility that we have so far. So with that, we want to move on this now, just in case this turns out to be our best shot, which, as I said, it appears to be right now. So, but we still are looking at other options. I want to really say that right now, that this is not a decision to go in this direction, but it is a decision to deep dive into this issue as we are right now. And this is what Michelle and the ROD committee are doing, and this is what PAC is encouraging then the ROD committee to do as well. So with that, that's all I want to say, and let's hear it from Kim and Jody.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for gathering tonight. I'm Jody Bayat from ROCUSA. We're a national nonprofit formed to do one thing, help residents like you get to the closing table to buy your manufactured housing community as a resident-owned cooperative. I'm based in Chicago as the National Acquisition Director, and I'm backing up my friends and colleagues in California with our affiliate program called the California Center for Cooperative Development. I'm here to introduce Kim Coons.
Thanks, Jody. My name is Kim Kuntz, and I'm the Executive Director of the California Center for Cooperative Development. We're a statewide nonprofit that works with all different kinds of cooperatives, but we have a special program dedicated to housing, and we are an affiliate of ROCUSA, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm going to get things set up right now so that I can share my screen and share a little PowerPoint that you may have gotten handouts for. Let me get this going here. Can you see okay? Oh, wait a minute. Can you see this okay? Oh, I can't see any of you. Let me see here. All right.
Kim, we can see it. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. Okay. So we're just going to talk a little bit about how the ROC works. And I just wanted to start first by just pointing out some things you already know, but just so that we're all on the same page. So as you know, the typical situation when you are living in a manufactured home or mobile home, however you want to refer to it, is that you own your unit, but don't necessarily own the land underneath it, which can make homeowners pretty vulnerable if they don't own that land underneath it. Also, just some background statistics is that manufactured homes are the best and most economical way really to own a home. And we call this, sometimes refer to it as the last bastion of affordability. Not that, only about 3% of the state lives in a manufactured home in California, but 47% of manufactured homes are affordable compared to only 18% of all the other housing. So it's a significant housing stock of affordable home ownership. I just wanted to, if you wanted to know more about the, oh gosh, are you seeing my whole slides? Let me see. If you wanted to learn more about this affordable housing, that there's been a threat with investors. What happened is that investors who were investing in housing way back when found that with the increasing homeowner prices, many people turn to purchasing manufactured home communities. There are even groups of buyers for manufactured homes communities. And I really encourage you to look at this piece by John Oliver, because it explains why that is and a little bit more of that background, but we don't need to go into it right now. If we just a little bit about ROCUSA, it's a national nonprofit, just like Jody shared that is formed to preserve manufactured home parks by helping residents to be in a competitive buyer in a purchase. So this is directly in reaction to the investor encroachment in manufactured home communities. So what we want to do from the ROC perspective is to help residents to make a fast purchase and in so doing be competitive with other investors that are trying to purchase the property. And so in this ROC program, there's technical assistance through the offer, through post-purchase, and offer is right now, really pre-offer as well. And then ROCUSA Capital is specially set up just to fund the purchase by residents of their manufactured home community. They're a community development financial institution. They are a nonprofit. And a part of that package is offering a forgivable pre-purchase loan to cover due diligence. Now that would only be offered if you're going to use financing from ROC. But it's a really, really nice thing, because if you're going to purchase your community, you want to find out what kinds of problems there are, just like any other buyer would. This is kind of a picture of how the ROCs work. We're a certified technical assistance provider for ROCUSA. And as you can see, all of these blue states are also ROCs. Basically, we are the state affiliate of the national ROCUSA. And so we help with the purchases of manufactured home parks all across the state. And if you look here, that you can see the experience of ROCUSA serving 21 states. They now have a national program so that they can reach out to more states. There are 316 resident-owned communities, probably more since I made this slide, and they represent more than 21,000 home sites. So there's a lot of experience behind this way of doing things. So just a little bit of the fundamentals of how this works. All of the manufactured home parks that are owned by residents that we help are organized as a limited equity housing cooperative. And that's basically a nonprofit organization with special characteristics. So when we work with the groups, we help them to form a corporation to purchase and operate the park. And then, of course, everyone still individually owns their manufactured home, but they're going to, if everything goes right, cooperatively own the community. Each homeowner purchases a membership share, which is an equity that has an equity limit that keeps that share affordable in perpetuity. Members pay a monthly site fee or lot fee to cover the mortgage and operating expenses. In a cooperative, we usually call this a carrying charge. And then the park is democratically governed on the basis of one vote per household member. Just a little bit more on how the limited equity housing co-op post-purchase transactions work. If a member wants to sell, they're selling both their share in the cooperative and their manufactured home. A part of this is that any sale must be to a purchaser who will be a resident and be a co-op member. So there is, when you first purchase the park, anyone who is in the community and doesn't want to be a member, they can stay. They're of course protected, but they're grandfathered in. After those initial residents, if they sell, they need to sell to someone who will be a member, and it must be a resident. And if you think about it, this is an important part of a cooperative, because we want to make sure that everyone that is making a decision is doing it from the same perspective, which is as a member and as a resident of the community. There's the limited equity has a equity cap on it, on the co-op share, but not in the manufactured home. You can sell your manufactured home for whatever the market will bear. Members can sell their home at market. It's only the co-op share that is permanently restricted. Another part of this statute, the limited equity cooperative in California, is if the park is sold or dissolved, the limited equity goes to a 501c3 nonprofit, not members. Now, the reason for this is just to be able to maintain this community as affordable. I can't tell you how many people we have coming into our calling our nonprofit saying that they want to buy this cooperative or that cooperative. And this just protects that. Sometimes it can be very tempting to want to sell a community or to sell a housing cooperative. And really the cost of what people get and by getting basically pushed into the normal market, it's not really an advantage to them. In fact, it can be a disadvantage. So I think that this protection is actually good. And why ROC-USA uses the limited equity housing model is another thing that I just wanted to address, is that both ROC-USA and the California Center for Cooperative Development have a nonprofit mission, and our mission is to help create affordable, stable communities. ROC-USA throughout Capital offers funding of up to 120% loan to value, and that's to try to help with that. Remember that over value is to help with all the expenses in purchasing the community. So it also maximizes membership and minimizes displacement. So the co-op share price in the resident-owned communities is $100 to $1,000 per site, and that stays stable. It doesn't change. The share price doesn't need to support the down payment. In many other models, when people are purchasing their community, they need that down payment, they need that share price in order to fund a down payment. We like the limited equity housing cooperative model because the community is resident focused, and that it has the resident owned at cost operations, and that helps to keep things stable over time. Just a little bit about funding, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jody here in just a minute. You can supplement the ROC-USA loan with a lot of different other kinds of funding. You can also decide that you don't want to do use ROC-USA Capital. The first loan is you can use conventional mortgage, ROC-USA funding. You can use bonds. For equity, you can use those co-op membership sales, although that's not very much, and so forth. And then there's gap financing that you can also use from a number of different sources. I'm going to go to this slide, which kind of shows what those sources could be. There's your normal HCD Cal Home program can be used. Funds from your county, you might want to talk to your city about this. You can use community development block grant money or home funds if you have housing trust funds or another community development financial institution. You can use AHP funding from the Federal Home Loan Bank. You can use, there's also this program through our California Department of Housing and Community Development called MORE. And so that's another possibility. And I think that's actually how we came to meet you, as a referral from MORE. So just a really quick summary of why we look at resident ownership, that you have operations at cost, stabilizes that monthly housing expense over the long term. It secures the value of the manufactured home by limiting the vulnerabilities of space rental. We actually find through research that ROC has done that people actually are able to sell their home for a higher price when they are a resident-owned community. It protects the park from closure or being changed to another use. And it really, the fundamental thing is that residents determine what is best for their community. I just wanted to share in closing one community that we worked with, which is a senior housing community in Mendocino. They have 109 manufactured homes. And in 2021, they were faced with purchasing the park or having the park sold to an investor. In their situation, it was kind of similar to yours in a way, because they really thought that they were secure. Their park was actually owned by a nonprofit. For whatever reasons, that nonprofit needed to sell the community, and they found themselves in this position, and the nonprofit was selling it at market value. They did take a lower price from the residents, which is nice. which was $13 million. But you can imagine at 13 million, they had quite rent increase in order to meet the payments on that loan. And so we helped them to work out some fancy ways to do the financing and so forth. And I encourage you to call them if you want to have a referral, if you want to know about another community that we've worked with is actually pretty similar to yours. Jody, you want to take it from here?
Sure. A lot of what Kim has said reflects the Rock USA model, including that the financing from Rock USA Capital is optional. As we help you get to the closing table, hopefully to buy the park, we can help you look at other financing sources. We would help you assemble this team. And so you have in place a great leadership team. We'd work with you to make sure that you elect what we call an interim board to work on the purchase of the community by the cooperative. The technical assistance provider is the role that Kim and her team would play from the California Center for Cooperative Development. They help you with the negotiation and the legal documents leading up to the closing. Also, I know your park has had extensive engineering studies. It would be Kim's teams and my job to look over those engineering studies and decide which additional third parties we want to hire to evaluate the infrastructure situation at your park. Because an important part of your financing will be borrowing reserves to make near-term repairs on your park if needed. And then we need to have in place not only the year one operating budget, but also a 10-year capital improvement budget to keep the park safe. Also, we work on board and membership training, and we have a fantastic off-the-shelf training program called Rocket, where it's kind of self-service. All of you, after you buy the park, can be members of Rocket and take any training that you want. Like I said, we'll help you procure additional engineering if necessary, additional property manager if necessary. I know you guys manage yourselves right now. So we'll be evaluating that and thinking about how to augment that, if at all, moving forward. So that's the team. We look forward to taking questions at the end. I'm ready to remember what the next slide is.
Well, let me.
This is our teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, this is really weird. I can't seem to advance right now. Okay.
Thank you. These are some questions that your leadership committee kindly served us up in advance. They asked us to talk about the startup costs of becoming a resident-owned community. So here we have some examples of pre-development costs. And as Kim mentioned, one of the advantages of working with Rock USA Capital, which is a sister company of Rock USA, is that they provide pre-development financing for these startup expenses. So in the chart, you can see expenses like earnest money. If your board needs additional laptops or technology to communicate, we finance that. Setting up a new property manager, if that were the case, doing the appraisal to make sure that you're not only paying the right price, but the lender has the assurance that an appraiser can attest to the value of what they're lending against. And then the due diligence, finalizing those engineering studies and moving forward with the 10-year capital improvement plan. Those costs are estimated at $51,000. But if necessary, for example, if the city of Novato asks for a lot of earnest money, we're able to ask for a larger pre-development loan to cover earnest money is that deposit that a buyer makes in order to show their earnestness to the seller that they want to close on the acquisition. We were also asked what's the difference between a member and a non-member of the cooperative. We do have some requirements that in time when you apply to us for a pre-development loan, we require that 40% of owner-occupied households in the community have joined the cooperative, because we want to see that momentum and toward being a cooperative, and we want to make sure that you have enough participation in the cooperative to manage yourselves successfully with the long-term assistance from Kim's team at CCCD. The other hurdle is by closing, we hope that you have 75% of owner-occupied households have joined the cooperative, and that all of you have set the cooperative share price for the community. One of the ROC-USA requirements is that the share price of your cooperative be set between $100 and $1,000 per household, because we want it to be affordable on the $100 end, but we want it to be a significant enough contribution that the cooperative is starting out with that foundation of capital on which to start the community. So assuming that you have 75% of the owner-occupied households are members by the time you buy the park, the members will decide what is the situation of non-members. Often we see boards charge a non-member fee, such as $100 a month for being a non-member, and that quickly incentivizes everyone to become members. When you're a non-member, you can't vote, you can't be on the board, and you can't affect the bylaws and the rules. So it's really advantageous to become a member of the cooperative, especially for the low price of $100 or $1,000, depending on what your community decides. We've also been asked how we make our money. ROC-USA is about 80% run through earned income and 20% grant capital funds our national operations. At a local level, Kim and her team at CCCD earns an acquisition fee up to 4% on each conversion to a ROC, plus ongoing fees to pay for their technical assistance. That technical assistance fee tends to be around $20,000 a year for a park of your size. But when you're financed by ROC-USA Capital, the loan pays that servicing fee, because it's a nice partnership for the lender to have the technical assistance provider working with you and keeping your cooperative and your community financially healthy. And so in that case, ROC-USA Capital pays the long-term servicing fee to our affiliate, the California Center for Cooperative Development. The overview of the process is actually really exciting. I hope you have a copy of this to take home with you. This is the path to closing. We would start today, from my perspective, it's the first membership meeting, or it's the first resident meeting. If you decide to become a ROC, we would then eventually have your first resident meeting. Your first membership meeting. It's almost 7 p.m. in Chicago, so apologize for my brain. And then with your newly elected board of directors, we would apply for financing, work with the engineering, like I mentioned, and finalize the property management plan. ROC-USA has templates for the community rules and the community bylaws, and you would have subcommittees working on tailoring those templates to your liking, so that you can launch the community successfully when you buy the park. We also have 3 policies that keep an eye on the board, and that we require that those policies be put in place by the members, such as a conflict of interest policy, a procurement policy. So these policies are all things that we've learned in the last 30 years of managing cooperatives, that they're the rules of the road, so to speak, for how to keep the board healthy and the relationship between all the members and the board appropriate and respectful. So that's the timeline we'd be looking forward to. After closing, CCCD would attend your monthly board meetings, and our only requirement would be that you have a resident member meeting at least annually in order to set the following year's budget. Of course, you could meet more often as a larger group if you so choose. I think I'm coming to the end of my presentation, and we're open for additional questions.
Thank you very much. What we're going to do with the questions is start with people here in the room. If you have questions, just please come up here to the microphone and they will answer the questions. And then when we spend a few minutes of questions here, then we'll go to the folks who are on Zoom. So the first person.
Hi, Jody. Alan Gump here. Question on the income survey. As you know, we're working with you on compiling that. Could you please just explain to our audience here the importance of that income survey, how you protect the data, and how you use it? And we've tried to explain this a number of times. I think it'd be better coming from you. Thank you.
Yeah, just want to say we do the income survey for many reasons, but the primary one is to be able to get you the best funding you can get. And we take that information very seriously. No one sees those, the specific data except in our office. And we do share redacted summaries of the findings to the organizing group that you have there, your HOA. But it is really, really important because if we can show that you qualify for special funding and those kinds of things, that's the data that we use. And so I really encourage you to please, I mean, I have to say, so far it's been really, really good. There have been a lot of responses. If everyone responds, that's the goal, is to be able to really have a good demographic picture of your community so that you can get the best financing and the best kinds of support that you can. And if you have anything to add, Jody.
Maybe if you could clarify, we have over 60% response. Is the target higher than that for applying for funding?
The target is as many people as possible. 60% is good, but 80% would be a lot better or above. And I have to say that we usually get that. We usually meet 80%. It's a little harder, of course, in larger communities, but please participate. And this is, it really, really is important. It also shows the commitment of your community.
Kim's right. The final requirement from the ROCUSA Capital perspective for their loan, 75% of those responses have come in.
Repeat that.
Could you say that again?
Sure. I'm so happy that you're at 60% now respondents. That's great at this stage. And to get financing from ROCUSA Capital down the line, you would need to have 75% of the community having filled in those income surveys. So keep them coming.
First, I want to say I'm very impressed with your presentation. After the 30 years of experience you've had, so you've seen a lot of the problems that can occur in cell phone communities. I've seen other problems. Several cell phone mobile home parks in California have gone bankrupt because they didn't fund their reserves sufficiently, and then they were vulnerable to investors purchasing. Does California require reserve studies and financing for parks? They do for every condo association, but do they require it for parks as well, so we don't run into that problem?
As a limited equity housing co-op, you're going to be you're going to be subject to the same rules as condos, basically. Pluses and minuses with that. And also ROCUSA Capital requires reserves. And that's one of the things that we do is to, I'll just say right now, we do loan servicing. So we're helping ROC Capital to also manage and let them know how stable you are in your community. And then the response to that isn't you're in trouble. The response to that is how can we help you get on track?
This regards to appraisal of property. What is the formula you use to come up with the rock bottom price, if you will, or an appropriate price? What's your procedure? What's your formula?
Oh, thanks for asking. This is my favorite thing to do. I will work with your leadership team, thinking about how to value the property. It's a very interesting situation, of course. I know about the developer having offered $30 million and the wonderful response you guys had to say, you know, no way. So the typical way that real estate is valued when it's an income producing property is to look at the income produced by your site rents divided by a cap rate, which is an idea of risk and return in the market. In California, real estate is incredibly valuable, so your cap rates are very low, which make your prices very high. And so if you keep your rents low, that would be a lower value for an investor than if an investor came in and made your rents skyrocket. That's what we're seeing in the industry, is that investors hold the park for a couple years, raise the rents, and then sell it for multiple millions of dollars more, because that the valuation is driven by the income in the numerator of that equation. And so the park will be valued based on the existing income. That's very easy to assess. The cap rate will be based on what we see in lovely places like Marin. So probably some of the most expensive pricing that I've ever seen. And then we'll start with that as a baseline. It's negotiating strategy from there that clear, you know, so we'll be thinking about the negotiating strategy, knowing that the city already has a price in mind from this other offer, knowing that they hopefully can be talked into a lower price based on what the community can afford. And then we pride ourselves on being able to get sellers a fair market value. And that would be our intention here. And so I've not yet seen the financials on your park in order to give you a value, but Kim's team and I look forward to doing that with you very soon.
I heard you say that the entire park is going to be valued. I have two questions. One is, will there be an individual site value according to what has or has not been done in repairs by the city of Novato, as long as it was the owner? And two, will we need to keep paying $100,000 plus for park management?
Oh, those are good questions. Thank you. The $100,000, is that what's currently in the budget for park management?
Anthony?
Can somebody from the PAC answer their question, which is whether we're currently paying $100,000 for Helsing Group? 70,000 is the answer. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. So I can't give you a price on future management without a valid
management company. We pay $120,000 for the on-site management.
Sorry, we're having some Zoom problems. So we'll get back to you on the future cost of management, but the combination of what the community can do with volunteer energy will combine with the fact that you need certain platforms in order to run yourselves. For example, you need a rent collection platform, you need a bookkeeper. And so those things cost something, and we'll help you run that search for the right property manager at the right price. The first question was about the valuation, I think. I'm sorry, I forgot the first question.
Individual.
No.
Yes.
I heard her say, are you gonna conduct individual site value based upon the improvements that the city of Novato completed, but I didn't understand individual site value.
Okay, I'm gonna take that on the park level since there is no individual site value. Absolutely, the deferred maintenance by the city of Novato will be part of the negotiating strategy. I am so happy you have multiple engineering reports.
Again, thank you very much for your presentation, very informative. The one question that I have is that I overheard that in the management of the park going forward, the cooperative has a monthly board of directors meeting attended by the ROC. How much influence does the ROC have on the governance of the park at that point?
Okay, Kim will take that one. You're muted, my friend.
We don't have any voice, we don't serve on the board. We're not a decision maker. We're just there to help, that basically.
I have 3 questions. One, the membership fee, you said 100 to 1,000. That is annually, not monthly, correct?
That's a one-time purchase into the
Okay.
cooperative.
Great. And then, can you say more about the revenue that ROC gets from a 4% acquisition fee? And then how are taxes for the park figured out?
Okay.
Property taxes.
So I'll take the 4% acquisition fee. That's a max. And we have a sliding scale where the more expensive the park, the lower the acquisition fee. And so if this is a $30 million park, the acquisition fee is probably more in the neighborhood of 2%. And that revenue goes to CCCD to fund their operations, and the amount of time that it takes to develop these relationships and build knowledge about what it is to be a ROC, and to hire new staff. A tiny portion of that acquisition fee is required to be paid by CCCD to the mothership, ROC USA, to help us fund our operations nationally. And Kim is a much better expert on the property tax question.
Yeah, I just want to also just continue on with the fee amount. If anyone's in the housing industry, usually this is the way in affordable housing people get paid, which is usually referred to as a developer fee. And basically that's the only fee we get. So when we help communities that don't go forward, we don't get paid. We only get paid on those that decide to work with us. So it's not just funding your community, it's funding our nonprofit to do the work that we do. And in terms of taxes, you have, I'm going to only speak for the entire property that you cooperatively own, not anything having to do with your individual.
Are you muted? We lost you. Kim. No, we can't hear you.
Kim, we lost you.
She doesn't. They can't hear you. Put your hand in your ear and show.
Does that help any?
Yes.
Yes, you're back.
I had my headphones on so that I could minimize what you heard in my house because I'm at home today. So you, as we all know in California, usually your community would be reassessed, and then you would have to pay higher taxes. It's a little complicated because you're a publicly owned community right now. Usually what happens with a limited equity housing co-op is that you keep whatever the previous value was. You do not get reassessed at the 30, if, for instance, if you sold at 30 million or whatever, you keep whatever the tax value, pre-sale tax value was. I don't think that you would be able to go at keep it at zero, because that is what the city, because it's being a city-owned community, there are no taxes. I think you would go back to the previous value, which at one time I knew, and I don't have at my fingertips right now, but you will basically be able to assume whatever the previous assessed value was and pay your taxes on that basis.
Hi, I'm a new resident, and one of the things that attracted me to this community was supporting low-income people. Can you speak a little bit to how they will be protected through this venture?
Well, hopefully I covered that a little bit in the limited equity housing co-op model. That is a part of our mission, is to keep people in the community. And we try to do that in a lot of creative ways sometimes, because honestly, sometimes with many of these communities that sell at really high prices, it becomes really, really difficult to try to keep the carrying charges or the monthly lot fee low enough to make it affordable to people. In the community that I gave as an example that I think is very, very similar to yours, because it was owned by a nonprofit, they had to we had to really try to be creative because they had significant increases in their carrying charges. What we did was we were able to do some creative things in negotiating with the nonprofit, which I think could happen with the city as well. And they wouldn't reduce the price, but instead they put some money into, offered some money into a fund. And two things happened. We were able to do what we call tiering, which made it so that everyone had the opportunity of having rent increases that were gradual over a 3-year period. And the other part was used to create what they called a founders fund, which is just a fund to help people who income qualified to have subsidy on their carrying charges. So, I mean, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to help people with, because nobody wants to displace anyone.
I'll add that if we are successful in obtaining a grant from the state for you from the MORE program, that the state will come with its own affordability restrictions. And part of the trade-off of taking money from the state will be that we'll have to maintain a certain number of units in the community at or below 80% of area median income. And what we hope that looks like is that when you go to sell your house in the future, you first try to sell to someone who's at or below 80% of area median income. And you give it 30 days or 40 days. And then if you aren't able to sell to a low income person, then you're free to sell to whomever. But the community has to maintain a certain ratio at the low income level that is established with the state when you get the grant money. So that's an additional provision.
Yes, I have a question that I believe someone asked when they made the question that would individual lots be appraised. The idea of appraising the park in general and the previous buyer that offered $30 million, if you kind of just get an idea as to what that would cost based on the number of individuals in the park, you're looking at about maybe $700 to $800 a monthly loan fee or loan payment fee. But in most cases, what we're paying right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 30% in utility and maintenance costs, and then a rent of maybe two-thirds. So we're looking at approximately $1,000 a month. Now, you're
it's very interesting how your rock community share fee is developed, but my real basic question is comparing $1,000 a month to what an individual is paying now, close to, let's say, $800. Maybe I'm using my own example, but the fact of the matter is that I don't get a picture as to how much an individual site would cost in relationship to what it's costing us now. Approximately, the other question was asked, well, we're paying $170,000 in management fees. I know that there's employees here that are making close to that already. So what I want to know is, how does this corporation, how does this co-op create the cost for individual units that are cost effective or inexpensive for low income people? Because if someone that's already paying $1,000 combined with the rent, and I would compare the rent to the lot fee, and then all the other costs for running the park, meaning what we have to pay the Rock organization to ensure that the board is doing what they're supposed to be doing, which I heard a question about who's gonna, control the board. But the question is more convoluted and I can't really clarify it, except maybe this here.
I think that's a really complicated question.
It is.
That I think that we really need to take more time on. And I mean, for summary, if you feel like you could summarize it in a minute, great. But I almost feel like there's a lot more depth in some of these questions that I would like to pause, write them down, get them to you, put them in our newsletter, the responses, so that we really are understanding the responses. Do you, Jody or Kim, feel like you can respond in a minute, or do you like that idea?
Well, I can respond to part of it. The one thing is I want to just clarify that you are cooperatively owning the entire community. You're not owning the space underneath your particular home. You are owning the whole community. And so so I just want to clarify that, just in case that wasn't clear before. And then you have an occupancy right to where you live, that lot that you live on. But basically, when you pay your carrying charge, you're paying for the loan amount and you're paying for the operating costs. And that budget would be passed by the entire community each year. And there was another thing I was going to address. Oh, you don't pay any out of pocket unless you didn't have any funding from ROC. You don't pay us anything. Beyond an escrow, we get that whatever percentage it turns out to be, which you will know. We don't get any payment from you directly. We get paid through the loan servicing through from ROC Capital. So you don't have any monthly fee to us. The other final thing is that if you decide to move forward and we have a price, what our team is going to do with some support from Jody is to create what we call a performa. And that performa is going to be shared with you. It's gonna, you'll look at it on a Zoom calls and so forth on slides, showing all of the expenses that we have for your community and what that means in terms of your monthly assessment.
Well, what I really want to.
We are at time. We've got 2 minutes to close the meeting, and I just wanted to check in with Kim and Jody. I'm happy to conclude the meeting and close the meeting. Clearly there is many more people both in the room, as well as we haven't even gotten to the 68 people who are attending on Zoom. Tell me about your time constraints, please. This was advertised as a 1 minute meeting and a 1 hour meeting, and I would like to respect that for the people in the room.
Well, in terms of me, I can stay for 10 more minutes. I just have another meeting. My day isn't done yet either. So Jody, could you do 10 more minutes or?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I would like to encourage the person who just asked that question, if you could please make sure I get your name later, because I want to make sure we get that question clear. Sir, go ahead.
Thank you.
I'd like to know, how are we residents going to be making this decision as to which path we take? Are we going to have a written vote, or how is it done?
I'd like to refer to what the PAC president on that is. Where did Jay go? Oh, there he is. Jay, could you answer that question? Did you hear it, or I can repeat it?
I heard it says, we're not prepared to answer that at this point. It's going to be as a result of a community meeting, to get all the input from the residents before making that decision.
Of those folks on Zoom, the answer from Jay Shelfer was that there will be a community meeting to take input and decide on an ultimate direction, and that date has yet to be set.
Right.
I want to make sure to go to the 67 people who are on Zoom. When we last checked, there was nobody's hand raised for any questions. Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to raise their hand and be acknowledged for any question? And I'm looking at John, who is on the computer now, to see if anybody's hands are raised. There's no one on Zoom then, and I'll go ahead and defer to the next question.
Hi, I'm Michelle Rivers, and I have concerns about these huge costs of upgrades that this park is needing. And going forward, would your group help us in finding, would we qualify for grants from the government or from any situation that could support us in taking care of very, very huge bills for improvement?
I think Jody and I can both take pieces of that. One source of funding that we have been using is this MORE funding. It's just for manufactured home communities, and we definitely will help you as much as we can. In terms of the MORE, we've helped. We are helping right now a number of communities purchase using MORE funds, but then also they have a rehab part. And so we're helping a number of communities with that as well. And we're just crossing our fingers because we're just about to learn the results of that. Jody, you want to?
Sure. The initial assessment of what has to be done immediately we will try to raise as much grant money for those immediate repairs. And the rest will need to be funded by the loan so that the lender has the confidence that the park's going to operate for 10 years. And then in year 11, you'd be looking at refinancing, possibly to a different lender, possibly back with ROCUSA. So the combination of grant money and borrowing will be part of the, back to that decision question of how you guys are going to make the decision. A lot of communities don't know until they have all the numbers right in front of them what's going to make sense, and this will be one of the driving factors of your numbers.
What I heard was that we have immediate repairs that are needed, but we have long-term, very expensive. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars for electrical grids, and I don't know all the details of that. But I have huge concerns that in 10 or 15 years, we're going to have to do some serious maintenance here, and how are we going to pay for it? And I don't actually get your answer that it's not going to be on us to pay for it. If every year, every 10 years we refinance, that looks like we would actually be paying for that long term. Is that accurate?
Any rehabilitation needs that you want will have to go into your budget, yes. But what happens when you first purchase is that we're looking at, is it 15 years out, Jody, or 10?
10.
The rehab. So we're looking at all of the property inspections are looking at not only the repairs that are needed immediately, but 10 years out, what those are. And much of that is going to be funded through reserves that are financed through a ROCUSA capital or another funding source if you have one.
Thank you for your answers.
I will take one final question.
Hi, my name is Steve Bloker. I am the treasurer and finance chairman here at the park. It seems like you guys have a whole lot of stuff to offer us. My question is this like a menu which we can choose this and not that, or do we have to get all in or nothing?
Well, this is another one I think that both Jody and I can contribute to. So remember that the purpose of ROC-USA is to try to help communities turn a fast sale, to be competitive, to be able to purchase their community. In order to do that, they have to have a lot of similarities between the different communities. So there are templates that are used, and that the positive side of that is that it helps everything go really fast. Some of the other side is that it does minimize the number of choices on certain things that you have, because they're trying to make these communities as similar as possible in some ways. So for instance, what your reserve accounts will be, that kind of thing, totally mandated, how much you have. And a lot of funders are going to have that anyway. But so it's kind of a mixture of both. And Jody, you want to take it from there?
Sure. I think the purchase process is full of all sorts of outs. So if you decide to come on this path with us, we would go under contract to purchase the park from the city with you. We're not co-owners or anything, but you would be buying the park with several opportunities to exit the deal as we find out more information. And then at the final moment, when you have all the numbers in front of you, we ask for 60% of the members to approve the future budget. Or if there's a significant rent increase needed to afford the borrowing necessary, then we need 80% of the cooperative to vote yes in order to finalize the purchase of the park.
I think I've heard of that.
I want to thank everybody who participated today, both Tim and Jody and Liliana for coming. Thank you so much. And anybody who has questions, those complicated questions that we heard today is really what I think the ROD wants to get into as a next step. We want to hear and understand your questions and really break those down. I want you to know that next week, the ROD is going to try to meet with both John and Jay to just find out how we can support them better. When we completed the report that I mentioned to you at the beginning, our final recommendations were to drill down on the budget that we provided to the PAC, to try to include